In the heart of this grim landscape, a single boat rocks on the incoming tide. It is an old, weary fishing vessel, the Marlin's Ghost. Its blue paint is blistered and peeling like sunburnt skin. Rust weeps from its chain pulleys. It looks less like a boat and more like a skeleton, bleached by wind and memory. On the pier, a man moves with the slow, deliberate pace of a lifetime of labor. This is Elias Thorne. He is 68 years old. His hands, wrapped around a frayed rope, are a map of his trade. Knuckles swollen, skin cross-hatched with a lifetime of nicks and scars, permanently stained with tar and brine. His face is weathered leather, his eyes the color of the Winder Sea, set deep under a woolen cap. He does not look at the horizon with wonder. He looks at the water to read its mood, its intention. Today, it feels restless. For 53 years, Elias has done this. He has left in the dark and returned in the dark. His hold sometimes full, often near empty. The sea has been his employer, his adversary, his church. It has taken the warmth from his bones and the spring from his step. It has given him just enough to survive, but never enough to thrive. He is a ghost in his own town, a relic of a dying way of life. His small cottage mortgaged twice over, his future as uncertain as the catch of the day. His routine is a prayer of necessity, a cup of black coffee in the dark kitchen of his silent house, the slow walk down the cobbled path to the harbor, the ritual of checking the engine, a tired old diesel that coughed and sputtered, the mending of nets, his thick fingers moving with an unconscious, ancient skill. He worked alone. The other, younger fishermen with their newer boats and electronic sonar had long since left him behind. He was a man out of time, listening to the groans of his boat and the whispers of the water, both telling him the same thing. This cannot last. Back at the dock, as he untangled the mess with a simmering anger, he threw the strange, rubbery seaweed into a battered bucket. It was a nuisance, but something about its texture, its toughness made him pause. Out of a habit born of a life where nothing is wasted, he didn't throw the bucket away. He hosed the seaweed clean and left it to dry in a corner of his cluttered shed, next to old engine parts and coils of rope, forgotten. Weeks passed. The bucket sat there, the seaweed now dried into hard, dark, leathery strips. One evening, a local woman, Anya, who made pottery and sold it to tourists, stopped by to see if he had any interesting driftwood. Her eyes fell on the bucket. She picked up a piece of the dried seaweed, flexing it. It was strong, pliable, with a unique grain-like texture. "Elias, what is this?" she asked, her voice curious. "Trash," he grunted, not looking up from mending a net. "Tears my nets. Nuisance." "May I take some?" He shrugged. "Take the whole bucket. Good for nothing." Anya took it. She experimented. She boiled it, treated it with natural oils, and discovered it could be woven. She made a small basket, lining it with her pottery, and sold it in her shop as a seagrass set. A tourist from the city bought it, fascinated by the story. They asked for more. A week later, Anya came back to Elias's shed. She handed him $50. "For the seaweed," she said. Elias stared at the money, confused. For the trash. It's not trash. It's a material. People like it. They like the story. Doubt was his first reaction. It made no sense. But $50 was $50. It was a tank of fuel. Reluctantly, cautiously, he began to collect the seaweed deliberately. He learned its name, knotted rack, and where it grew. He developed a gentle method for harvesting it, one that didn't damage the beds. He and Anya worked out a deal. He would clean and dry it. She would weave it into baskets, mats, and lampshades. They sold a few, then a few more. A small article appeared in a regional lifestyle magazine about the old fisherman and the potter turning ocean debris into art. Orders trickled in online. His son, who had long urged him to sell the boat and move inland, scoffed. "It's a fad, Dad, a tourist trinket. The boat is your real work." But the trickle became a stream. A boutique home decor store in California placed a large order. Then a hotel chain in Iceland, seeking authentic, sustainable materials, wanted to use the woven panels for their lobbies. The fad did not die. It grew. Elias hired Anya full-time, then 2 other weavers from the village. His shed was no longer big enough. They rented a small warehouse on the waterfront. The nuisance was now a business. The turning point was silent, profound. It wasn't a viral video or a massive check. It was the day Elias stood in that clean, bright warehouse, the smell of salt and dried seaweed filling the air, and his accountant told him the company, Thorne Sea, was valued at over $2 million. He didn't cheer. He walked to the large window overlooking the harbor, to the marlin's ghost sitting silently at its berth. He felt the weight of a lifetime of struggle lift from his shoulders, replaced not by triumph, but by a deep, quiet awe. He still goes out on the boat sometimes, but not for the same reason. Now he goes for the silence, for the communion. He looks at the water not as a taskmaster, but as a partner. He thinks about the countless times he had dragged his nets through these very waters, cursing the tangled mess of seaweed, blind to the gift he was hauling aboard. He had spent his life looking for fish, while fortune was hiding in the weeds everyone else ignored. At 68, Elias Thorne found a new purpose. Not in chasing a dream, but in finally seeing the value in what was already in his hands. His success wasn't born in a boardroom or from an ambitious plan. It was born from a storm, a torn net, and a simple, humble refusal to let anything go to waste. It was a lesson the sea had been trying to teach him all along, that sometimes the greatest treasures are not the ones you hunt for, but the ones that cling to you, quietly, waiting for you to finally take notice. The old diesel engine of the Marlin's Ghost turns over with a familiar grumbling protest. Elias doesn't take her out for the long, punishing hauls anymore. Now the boat serves a different purpose. It is his sanctuary, his thinking room. He still rises before the sun, the habit etched too deep into his bones to fade. But the anxiety that once coiled in his stomach on these mornings is gone. The fear of an empty hold, of a wasted day, has been replaced by a quiet anticipation. He steers the boat not to the deep water fishing grounds, but along the rugged coastline, to the sheltered rocky coves where the knotted wrack grows thick and dark.
His relationship with the sea has fundamentally changed. He is no longer a suppliant, begging for a catch. He is a tender, a gardener of the ocean. He works with a small hand-held rake now, carefully pulling the dense ribbon-like seaweed from the rocks, ensuring the roots remain intact so it can grow back. It is slow, methodical work. His gnarled hands, which once fought against the sea's fury, now move with a gentle, almost reverential precision. He fills his baskets, the salt spray stinging his face, and feels a profound sense of peace. This is not extraction, it is collaboration. Back on shore, the small warehouse hums with a quiet industry that is entirely new to the village. The air inside is rich and earthy, smelling of salt and the slightly sweet tannic scent of the drying seaweed. Anya and her team of 3 other women, all from the village, work at long tables. Their hands, like Elias's, are skilled, but their work is one of creation, not of harvest. They sort the dried strips by color and texture, their movements fluid as they weave the tough, leathery strands into intricate patterns. What was once a trash material is now transformed into beautiful, durable baskets, wall hangings, and lampshades that cast a warm, dappled light.
Elias walks through the space, not as a boss, but as a fellow craftsman. He runs his fingers over a nearly finished basket, feeling the strength of the weave. He is still learning the language of this new craft. He understands the raw material, its tensile strength, how it reacts to different weather, the best way to cure it. Anya understands the art. Together, they have created something unique. The orders no longer just trickle in, they are a... Elias walks through the space, not as a boss, but as a fellow craftsman. He runs his fingers over a nearly finished basket, feeling the strength of the weave. He is still learning the language of this new craft. He understands the raw material, its tensile strength, how it reacts to different weather, the best way to cure it. Anya understands the art. Together, they have created something unique. The orders no longer just trickle in, they are a steady, manageable flow. The business, Thorne Sea, has found its niche, catering to high-end interior designers and eco-conscious consumers who are not just buying a product, but a story of the sea, of a second chance, and of seeing beauty in the overlooked. His son, Mark, who had been the loudest voice of doubt, now helps manage the books. The tension that once hung between them, born of a son's worry for his father's precarious future, has dissolved. They sit at Elias's kitchen table, the same table where Elias once drank his coffee in lonely silence, and now they spread out invoices and shipping manifests. Mark talks about profit margins and scaling production, but he does so with a new respect in his eyes. He sees his father not as a stubborn old man clinging to a dying past, but as an innovator, an accidental entrepreneur who stumbled upon a vein of gold in the most unexpected place. One evening, Elias sits on his porch, looking out over the harbor. The marlin's ghost is silhouetted against the setting sun, looking smaller now, but no longer tragic. It is a relic, yes, but a respected one, a museum piece to his old life.
He sips a cup of tea. His hands, though still scarred, no longer ache with the same deep, bone-weary pain. He thinks about the twists of a life. For 68 years he believed his story was a simple, linear one. Born in this village, would die in this village, a fisherman to the end. He had accepted it with all its hardships. He never imagined a second act. He never dreamed that the sea, which had given him so little for so long, had been saving its greatest gift for his final years. It wasn't about the money. The financial security was a miracle, of course. It meant a new roof, no more debt, the ability to help his grandchildren. But the true value was something else entirely. It was purpose. It was the sound of laughter in the warehouse. It was the pride in Anya's eyes. It was the knowledge that he had created something that would outlive him, something that gave a handful of people in his village a renewed sense of purpose. He had not just built a business, he had helped weave a new future for his community, a future that honored the past while embracing something entirely new.
The philosophical reflection comes to him not in grand words, but in the simple, clear language of a man who has spent his life reading the water and the weather. Success, he realizes, doesn't always come from a fierce, relentless ambition. It doesn't always come from following a map you drew in your youth. Sometimes it washes up at your feet, tangled in your nets. Sometimes it's hidden in the things you curse, in the inconveniences, in the mess of a bad day. Success is about paying attention. It's about having the humility to question your own definition of what is valuable and having the courage to pick up what everyone else has thrown away. He finishes his tea as the last light fades from the sky. The lights from the warehouse glow warmly against the deepening blue of the evening. Inside, the day's work is done, the woven creations waiting to be shipped to homes across the country, each one carrying a piece of this coast, a piece of his story. Elias Thorne, the 68-year-old fisherman, smiles a slow, quiet smile. The sea had one last surprise for him, and it was more beautiful than he ever could have imagined. The first real winter of his retirement arrives, but it feels nothing like the winters before. The wind still howls down from the north, and the sea turns the color of iron, but the cold no longer holds the same menace. Elias sits by his wood stove, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls of his cottage, now properly insulated and without a single draft. He holds a bank statement, the numbers still a source of quiet disbelief. $2 million. It is an abstraction, a number too large to fully comprehend. The tangible reality is in the warmth of the room, the new boots by the door, the knowledge that he can buy a new truck without taking out a loan. This new reality brings with it a subtle shift in the town. He is no longer just Old Man Thorne, the struggling fisherman. He is now Elias Thorne, the one who made it. And with that comes a new kind of attention. A developer from Portland visits, his car too shiny for the gravel road. He sits in Elias's kitchen, spreading brochures for a proposed artisanal waterfront village where the old fish packing plant stands. He talks about leveraging the Thorne Sea brand, about scale and maximizing market penetration.
He uses words that feel like stones thrown into a still pond, disruptive and out of place. Elias listens patiently, his rough hands folded on the table. He looks at the glossy renderings of boutique hotels and chic restaurants. It is a vision of a town he would not recognize. He thinks of the warehouse, of the rhythmic, quiet work of the weavers. He thinks of the careful, sustainable harvest from the coves. This proposal felt like the opposite of that. It was a net meant to scoop up everything, with no thought for what would be left behind. "Thank you for the offer," Elias says, his voice calm but firm. "But we're doing just fine on our own scale." After the developer leaves, a different kind of visitor arrives. They are younger, in their 20s and 30s, carrying not briefcases, but notebooks and a sense of earnest purpose. They are entrepreneurs themselves, makers of small-batch cheeses, craft brewers, artists. They have heard the story of the Fisherman and the Seaweed, and they have come not to buy him out, but to listen. They sit on crates in the warehouse, and they ask questions not about profit margins, but about process. They want to know how he knew the seaweed was special, how he built the trust with Anya, how he balances growth with his values. Elias finds himself, to his own great surprise, becoming a quiet mentor. He has no 7-step plan for success. His advice is simple, drawn directly from the grain of his life. Pay attention to what's in your nets, even the stuff you think is junk. Look at it closer. The answer isn't always out there somewhere else. Sometimes it's right there, tangled up in your problems. He becomes a guardian of a different kind of wealth. He uses a portion of the company's profits to quietly pay off the mortgages of 2 other aging fishermen in the cove, men who had shared their fuel with him in lean times. He establishes a small fund to help maintain the town's historic pier, not to turn it into a tourist attraction, but simply to keep it standing, to keep it working. His generosity is quiet, without fanfare, like the tide coming in, a natural, restoring force.
One afternoon, he takes his young granddaughter, Lily, out to the cove in the Marlin's Ghost. She is 7, her small hand trusting in his. He shows her how to identify the knotted rack, how to gently harvest a small clump without harming the plant. Her eyes are wide with wonder, seeing not a commodity, but a magical forest under the water. "Will you teach me to weave, Grandpa?" she asks, her voice small against the vastness of the sea. "Yes, I will, little one," he says, his heart feeling full in a way no bank statement could ever replicate. This, he realizes, is the true inheritance, not the money, but the knowledge, the story, the connection to this place, and the understanding that value is not a fixed price, but a relationship with the materials you work with, the people you work alongside, and the world you live in. He looks out at the horizon, the same horizon he has watched for a lifetime. It holds no more fear for him. The struggle is over. He had spent his whole life believing the sea's greatest gift was what it yielded up from its depths, the fish, the lobster, the catch. Now he understands its truest gift was what it taught him about perseverance, about patience, and finally about perception. The sea had not made him rich by giving him something new. It had made him rich by teaching him how to see what had been there all along. The story of Elias Thorne is not a story of a lucky accident. It is a story of a lifetime of preparation for a single moment of recognition. It is a testament to the idea that our greatest opportunities are often disguised as our greatest inconveniences, and that the seeds of a second act are often sown in the soil of a first act that felt like a failure. For Elias, success did not arrive as a lightning bolt of inspiration, but as a slow, patient tide, finally reaching a shore that had been waiting for it all along.